Am I the a-hole for getting revenge on my noisy college roommate by exposing his cheating? So, I, 20M, am currently a junior in college, living in the dorms. Like most students, I have a roommate, Kyle, 21M. When I first met Kyle, I thought we'd get along great. He seemed like a chill guy, we're both business majors, and we had a few mutual friends, which made the transition easy. We even hung out together during the first couple of weeks, playing video games, grabbing drinks, the usual college stuff. It was all good, until he started dating Emily, 20F. Emily seemed cool at first. She was nice, funny, and super sweet to Kyle. They clicked pretty fast, and soon she was over at our dorm all the time. I'm not exaggerating. She practically lived with us. That wouldn't have been an issue if it wasn't for one thing. They were loud, and I mean loud. Not just talking loud, but, the other kind of loud. It started with occasional hookups. I'd be in bed, trying to sleep, and I'd hear the creaking of the bed, the moaning, and the giggling. Gross, but okay, I get it, college. But this quickly escalated. What started as once or twice a week became an every night kind of thing, and it was always in the middle of the night. I tried everything to cope. Earplugs, noise-canceling headphones, blasting music on my phone, even pulling all-nighters at the library. But nothing worked, and I was getting more and more exhausted. I'm not someone who needs a ton of sleep, but I couldn't get a decent night's rest. Every time I brought it up to Kyle, he brushed me off, saying, "Come on, dude, we're in college. Just deal with it. You can sleep during the day." Easy for him to say. His schedule was light while I had back-to-back classes, labs, and work-study shifts. This went on for a couple of months, and my grades started to slip. I was always tired and cranky, which made it hard to focus on assignments and study for exams. The tipping point came during midterms. I had an important accounting exam the next day and planned to pull a late-night study session. I politely asked Kyle if he could maybe take the night off with Emily or, at the very least, go over to her place for once. He said sure, no problem. Fast forward to 2 a.m. I'm deep in the middle of practice problems when I hear them come in, drunk and giggling. They don't even try to be quiet. They go straight to the bed and start again. At this point, I'm seeing red. I had specifically asked him to give me the night to focus, and he didn't care. Here's where I might be the asshole. Kyle is kind of a douche. He was always bragging about cheating on Emily when she wasn't around. He'd go to parties, hook up with random girls, and then act all lovey-dovey with Emily the next day. It was gross, and honestly, I felt bad for her. Emily was nice. She didn't deserve to be treated like that. That night, while they were at it, I had a light bulb moment. I pulled out my phone and started recording. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it yet, but I knew this was my chance to get back at Kyle. After a few minutes of recording, I set up a burner phone number using one of those apps and texted Emily. The text went something like this: "Hey, Emily, I thought you should know that Kyle hasn't been honest with you. He's been cheating on you, and you deserve better. Here's proof of what's going on when you're not around." I included the audio clip of them hooking up, along with a little more dirt. Details about how Kyle had hooked up with another girl at a frat party when Emily was visiting her family out of state. I didn't hold back. 2 days later, the bomb exploded. Emily showed up at our dorm in the middle of the afternoon while I was in class. Apparently, she had confronted Kyle about the cheating, and he tried to deny it at first. But when she brought up specific details about the other girls and the recording, Kyle couldn't talk his way out of it. They had a massive argument right there in the room, with Emily screaming, throwing his stuff around, and eventually breaking up with him on the spot. When I got back, the room was a mess, and Kyle was furious. He immediately accused me of being the one who told Emily, and while I didn't admit to it directly, he knew I had a hand in it. From then on, he started calling me vindictive and petty, accusing me of ruining his life just because I couldn't handle a little noise. He told all of our mutual friends, and now the group is divided. Some think Kyle got what he deserved for being a cheater and a terrible roommate. Others think I went too far by involving myself in his personal life and argue that I should have just talked to him again or moved out if it bothered me that much. Kyle's been extra cold toward me ever since, and I've heard him telling people that I ruined his relationship out of jealousy or spite. But honestly, I don't feel bad. He disrespected me for months, and I was just trying to get some peace in my own room. So, Reddit AITA for getting revenge on my roommate by exposing his cheating? Or did he deserve what was coming to him? Update. First off, I want to thank everyone who took the time to comment on my original post. I never expected it to blow up like it did, and I was honestly overwhelmed by the responses. Both the ones that backed me up and the ones that called me out. I've had some time to reflect on the situation, and let me tell you, things have escalated since I first posted. If you thought the original story was messy, this update takes it to a whole new level. Buckle up because this is going to be a long one. After Kyle's relationship imploded and Emily broke up with him, I moved out of our shared dorm room as quickly as possible. I was lucky enough to find a new spot in the same building, just a few floors up. The relief I felt when I finally moved my last box out of that toxic room was unreal. It was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. For the first time in months, I was able to sleep without hearing the bed creaking at 3 a.m. or being woken up by drunken laughter. It was bliss. The new room was great. My new roommate, Alex, was super chill. A music major who spent most of his time in the studio or working on projects. We barely saw each other, and when we did, it was peaceful. He wasn't the type to party or bring people over constantly, which was exactly what I needed. My grades started improving almost immediately because I could actually study without Kyle and his chaos. I was finally getting my life back on track, and it felt like I was putting all that drama behind me. But of course, Kyle wasn't gonna let me off that easy. After I moved out, I did my best to avoid Kyle. I figured he'd cool off eventually and maybe, just maybe, we could be civil. But I underestimated how much he'd spiral after the breakup with Emily. It wasn't just the fact that he lost his girlfriend, it was that his whole ego took a hit. Kyle had always been the type to think he could do whatever he wanted and get away with it. For the first time, he was facing consequences for his actions, and he wasn't handling it well. Kyle's partying went from bad to worse. He started going out almost every night, getting completely trashed, and dragging random people back to the dorm to keep the party going. His new roommate, a quiet freshman named Nate, lasted all of 2 weeks before he couldn't take it anymore. Nate actually came to me for advice on how to deal with Kyle. I told him straight up to get out if he could because Kyle wasn't going to change. Sure enough, Nate packed his stuff and moved out, leaving Kyle with the room to himself. I started hearing rumors that Kyle was on academic probation. Apparently, he'd missed multiple assignments and was barely showing up to class. One of his professors even pulled him aside to warn him that if he didn't turn things around, he was going to fail the semester. Instead of taking the warning seriously, Kyle brushed it off and continued partying like nothing was wrong. It was like he was trying to self-destruct. Things between Kyle and I hit a boiling point about 2 weeks after I moved out. I was grabbing lunch with a few friends in the cafeteria when I saw Kyle walk in with some of his buddies. I thought I could avoid him, but I was wrong. He spotted me and made a beeline for our table. He looked rough, like he hadn't slept in days, and he was clearly pissed. "Kyle, what's up, man?" I tried to play it cool, hoping to defuse the situation, but he wasn't having it. He went off, accusing me of being a snake, of setting him up to ruin his life. "You think you're so smart, huh?" he spat. "Playing the good guy while you sneak around behind my back. You're a coward, man. You didn't even have the balls to tell me you were messing with Emily." That caught me off guard. "What are you talking about? Emily and I are just friends," I said, trying to stay calm. I could feel my friends getting uncomfortable, shifting in their seats. Kyle didn't back down. "Don't lie to me. Everyone knows what you did. You've been trying to get with her since day one. That's why you told her about the cheating. You wanted her for yourself." At this point, I was just done. I stood up and said, "Look, man, I don't know what you're hearing, but I didn't want Emily. You treated her like crap, and you treated me like crap. I told her the truth because she deserved to know. You've been self-sabotaging, and that's on you, not me." He actually tried to throw a punch. I'm not exaggerating. He swung at me, right there in the middle of the cafeteria. Luckily, one of my friends stepped in and blocked him before it got too far. Security was called, and Kyle was escorted out, screaming about how I'd ruined his life. It was honestly one of the most surreal moments of my college experience. After the cafeteria incident, Emily reached out to check on me. She'd heard what happened. News spreads fast on a small campus, and she felt bad that I had to deal with Kyle's meltdown. We grabbed coffee a few days later, and she opened up more about her relationship with Kyle. Honestly, some of the things she told me were worse than I expected. Apparently, Kyle had been emotionally manipulative for a long time. Whenever Emily tried to call him out on his behavior, whether it was the cheating or the way he treated her, he'd gaslight her into thinking she was overreacting. He would say things like, "You're being crazy," or "I'm just joking around, don't be so sensitive." Hearing her describe it made me realize how much she'd been struggling in that relationship, even before she found out about the cheating. Emily told me she was glad I'd sent her that text with the recording, even if it was a messy way to do it. She said it gave her the proof she needed to finally leave Kyle, and while the breakup had been rough, she was so much happier now. She'd joined a few campus clubs, reconnected with old friends, and even started seeing a new guy who treated her with actual respect. Seeing her glow up post-breakup was honestly inspiring. After the cafeteria incident, Kyle's reputation took a hit. People started talking about how he had tried to fight me and how he was spiraling out of control. The rumors about me and Emily continued, though. Kyle had told so many people that I was trying to steal her that it became the dominant narrative among his friend group. Some people even started calling me a homewrecker behind my back, which was ridiculous since Emily and I had never been more than friends. One night, I got a text from an unknown number that said, "Watch your back." I had no idea if it was from Kyle or one of his drunk buddies, but it freaked me out a little. I didn't respond, but I started locking my door every night and being more cautious about where I went on campus. I didn't think Kyle would actually come after me, but given how unhinged he'd been acting, I wasn't taking any chances. To make matters worse, Kyle's academic probation turned into a full-on academic crisis. He ended up failing multiple classes, and there were rumors that he was going to have to retake the entire semester. Instead of owning up to his mistakes, Kyle doubled down on blaming me. He told people that I was the reason his life was falling apart, that if I hadn't betrayed him, he'd still be on track with his studies and in a happy relationship. It was honestly sad to see how delusional he'd become. Since moving out, my life has improved dramatically. My grades are back on track. I'm getting more sleep, and I've started reconnecting with friends I'd lost touch with while dealing with Kyle's nonsense. Alex, my new roommate, has been great. He's quiet, respectful, and we actually get along. It's like night and day compared to living with Kyle. Emily and I are still good friends. We hang out a lot, and I'm genuinely happy to see her thriving after everything she went through with Kyle. She's been focusing on herself, and she even landed a leadership position in one of the campus organizations she joined. It's been cool to see her become more confident and independent. As for Kyle, I don't see him much anymore. We run into each other occasionally, but he usually just glares at me or mutters something under his breath. He's still hanging on to this narrative that I ruined his life, but honestly, I've moved on. I don't regret what I did. Kyle needed to face the consequences of his actions, and if I played a part in that, so be it. Looking back, I can see that the way I went about exposing Kyle was messy, but after months of sleepless nights and constant disrespect, I felt like I had no other choice. Some of you said I could have handled it differently, and you're probably right. But at the end of the day, I don't feel guilty for standing up for myself and for Emily. Thanks again for all the feedback, Reddit. Life is a lot better now, and I'm glad I put that chapter behind me.